afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Flags 365 and the Black Tech Queen Show. So my name's Karimah Campbell, and today, Saturday the 10th of April, is National Siblings Day. So we decided to do a mid-month special and mix it up a bit. So as usual, we are live, so drop any of your questions in the box. And for those of you who are watching recorded, please still feel free to put your questions and comments in the box, and we will respond separately. And so you can catch all of our previous shows on this channel, so be sure to like and subscribe and share with all of your network, because we really want to build out our community of Black Tech Queens, both queens and allies. As usual, you can keep up to date with all things Black Tech Queens on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook using the handle @BlackTechQueens. So can I just do a quick check? I see we've got a couple of people here today. Can you hear us loud and clear? Just drop me a quick note in the box and we will be good to go. Cool, I see the numbers are slowly climbing, so thank you. Perfect, all right, I'm seeing the odd wave. Okay, so I guess let's just jump straight into it. I know it's a Saturday afternoon and I want to give you something that's really close to my heart. So being the eldest of 7 has always given me this sense of responsibility where I feel that I need to make sure that my siblings are able to achieve the most in life and really reach their true potential. And I can't even just begin to explain how proud I am to have today's show and to be able to highlight this queen. Okay, sorry, I'm just seeing more people joining and sending their hellos. So thank you. Feel free to send your hellos publicly as well. They don't have to be private messages. Right. So with my siblings, I've gone through so many journeys and experiences with them. I've been taught how to speak Arabic by one, how to saw a piece of wood correctly by one in a B&Q car park, watched them play multiple football and rugby matches, seen them walk across the stage at their graduation ceremonies, and also seen my sister be an amazing mother to my nieces. And all of this just really warms my heart and keeps me motivated and keeps me knowing that what I'm doing is making a difference, because it's giving them, I guess, the knowledge to know that they can achieve anything they want to do as well. So on that note, I'm going to jump in and introduce the Black Tech Queens Marketing and Engagement Coordinator, a cybersecurity superstar, and an all-round Black Tech Queen, my beautiful baby sister, Amatullah Campbell. So, welcome, sis. Let me unmute you.
Thank you for having me, sis. Happy to be here. Such a lovely introduction as well.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. You know, I'm trying to do it today and still trying to play around with some of the buttons. So yes, welcome. You know how this works. You've seen the previous shows. So I'm going to jump straight in and answer the big question. Who is Amatullah Campbell?
Oh, I love this question because it's always like, oh, what part do you want to hear? So a bit of background about me. So I was born in England. I moved to Saudi when I was 5 years old. I lived there. I did all of my schooling in Saudi Arabia, so I learnt Arabic from when I was 5 years old. After that, I took a gap year after I graduated from, well, in Saudi, you have graduation when you have a diploma. It's kind of similar to the US. So I took a gap year and worked for a year at a fitness center over there. Kind of helped me save up for the first year of university. And then when I came back, I decided, okay, I'm going to go into forensic science. I got accepted to the University of Wolverhampton. And whilst I was at university, I worked in several industries. So I was a part-time freelance interpreter for the NHS. I worked at a tuition centre. I worked as a customer service advisor at BT. And towards the end of my degree, I was working in Al Rayyan Bank as a complaints officer. And then, whilst all that was going on, I graduated with a first class honours from the University of Wolverhampton in forensic science. And I later went on and joined Accenture as part of their information security graduate scheme in 2019. So I'm now a cybersecurity analyst in the health and public service sector. I'm directly aligned to strategy and risk. So that's a brief introduction about me.
Yeah, no, that is a lovely summary. I love that. So obviously you, as you mentioned, you spent your formative years in Saudi and now you work in technology. So did you always know you wanted to work in technology? And if you did, do you feel that you had the right opportunities over there?
So I didn't actually know that the field of cybersecurity existed when I was in Saudi. I feel like it was either you go down the medical route, you're either a lawyer, doctor, just the main ones that people highlight. And then I remember meeting someone who told me about forensic science, and they were doing a degree in forensic science. It was actually one of my mom's friends. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I think that's what I want to do. She told me a couple of the things that she was doing at university. And I was like, that is cool. It was really interesting. So I don't think I went down the conventional, I didn't do a computer science degree or anything like that and then went into technology. It was more of, I did forensics and then I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? Because the field of forensic science is very saturated in the UK. And I remember entry-level jobs were asking for like 3 years worth of experience. And I was like, do I want to do this? Especially when the hours aren't as friendly. Because it was a lot of it was shift working, and sometimes you'd have to work from like 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I was like, I don't see myself doing that. Yeah. So in terms of opportunities, I guess I found the opportunities more when I came back to England.
Okay, cool. I never really understood why you did forensic science. Like, I remember you used to look at blood splatters and all of that. Yeah, I did forensic computing. I loved that, but I couldn't understand the nitty gritty, the CSI element of it, I guess.
It was really interesting. I think what inspired me to choose forensic science, contrary to popular belief, I always get asked this question. Oh, it must have been CSI. It was not. I did not like CSI. I found it was too glamorous in the sense that, and it's a lot of it is fake. Like you wouldn't have a detective walk onto an active crime scene in shoes and then pick something up with a pen. No. So it wasn't CSI. I changed my career plan so many times growing up. I went from wanting to be a doctor to midwife. I wanted to be a pilot. I even took a flying lesson in Jamaica. At one point, I wanted to be a paramedic. So I knew I wanted eventually to go into something that would have a lot of variety and something that would challenge me. And I knew that not every day would be the same. So I think that's the main reason I chose forensic science.
Okay, cool. Just hearing the options that you had growing up and the ones that, all the career paths that you wanted to follow, that really warms my heart. Like there's still so many women, there's still a need for women, I guess, in like the, being pilots and things like that. So knowing that that was something for, as a young girl, you thought, oh, I could do that. That's really nice to see. That's really nice. Cool. So you mentioned all of your different jobs that you've had prior to going into cybersecurity. Do you feel that there were any of those skills that were transferable?
Absolutely. So I think one of the main things was in every job that I was in, particularly when I was at BT and Al Rayyan, a lot of it was problem solving. So I liked, if I give an example, when I was at Al Rayyan, a lot of it was dealing with complaints. So where, we've done something and the customer is unhappy, we'd get a complaint, we'd have to thoroughly investigate it before they go to the financial ombudsman. So I was like the final line before it gets escalated to the financial ombudsman. And I found it really interesting because every complaint was different, and there was a lot of investigation. It's like, okay, they had X amount of conversations with certain people in the bank. I would have to then listen to those recordings and, try and piece it together just to see where exactly we went wrong. And if we found that the bank was at fault, then we would, offer them some sort of compensation and give just make things right. So I think problem solving from that respect and root cause analysis definitely was a transferable skill going into technology. And I kind of enjoyed fault testing when I was at BT. So like testing people's broadband and their telephone line. If their TV was down, we'd just run a fault test, get engineers booked. So I think the actual testing perspective I found really useful when I went on to a testing project at Accenture. So yeah, I think that I found a lot of transferable skills.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. So I know you mentioned to me separately when you were going for your interview at Accenture, and a lot of the questions were around banking, for example.
Yeah.
And so you called on that. I think that's really, that's something people don't really think about, knowing that you can pull on your other experience. It doesn't have to necessarily be in the same position that you've gone into now. There's so much you can pull on.
Yeah, 100%. Because I remember going to the assessment day, I kind of had it in the back of my mind that, okay, am I the only one that's going to be coming from a science background? And as soon as I got into the room, there were like 8 of us, and everyone came from like either law or engineering. There was a couple of people that came from psychology. So I was kind of put at ease that, okay, they're not just looking specifically for someone from a computer science background. And throughout that day, we had all of these different assessments, and one of the technical interview towards the end, they give you like a scenario, and you have to like create a solution or say which parts of the problem you would focus on first. And it just so happened that it was a banking scenario, and so I pulled on that knowledge of, okay, KY, like I pretty much drew a journey, like a customer's journey from when they become like a prospect to then going on to an actual customer, all the background checks that are run on customers and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely, it's important to, like, if you have experience elsewhere, to just use that experience and just tailor it to what you're doing in technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So being a Black Muslim woman working in tech, have you ever come across any stereotypes?
Oh, okay. So I have a lovely story. So I was working on a project in the UAE back in 2019, and the client that I was working with it was an interesting project. And I remember the hours were quite long, so we would get there at like 8 and we would leave around 6, which is it's not that long, but we then had to work when we got back to the hotel and that sort of thing. But I remember a particular day that I was just exhausted. I just wanted to go to lunch, eat my food, and just go into my bubble and just be alone with my thoughts. And there was a colleague who wasn't from Accenture, he was from a different business, and he was talking about the dark web. So I was like, I looked across at him a couple of times, like I wasn't actively part of the conversation, and I again just wanted to eat my food in peace. And he took the opportunity, because he thought that I wasn't, understanding like what was going on. He took the opportunity to share that and I guess mansplain what the dark web was and how you can access it. And I'm like, I work in security. He knew I worked in security as well, but he still explained what it was. And he then moved on to explain, no, he made a comment to me, and I was like, oh, okay, don't know what to say to that. And he said that, oh, you know, it's surprising seeing a woman in security because usually you guys stick to like graphic design, you know, the easy stuff. And I was just like,
Wow. The easy stuff. Wow.
yeah, I know graphic designers. It is not easy.
Exactly.
So yeah, that I think another example that I've heard from colleagues, not like yeah, I've heard from colleagues that I work with that when they go to a client site and they're the only female, they just assume that the other male there is in charge and the manager in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that. I've definitely experienced that in the past. With the guy who was mansplaining to you, did he what was his role? Did he work in technology as well?
So, yeah, he was also technology and he was actually security as well, but he wasn't part of the security team. So yeah.
Cool. Oh, I don't even know. Hopefully they'll people will understand
Well,
soon.
give the benefit of the doubt to him. Maybe he just thought he was doing me a favor by mansplaining it to me. You never know.
Do you know, I'm not going to say anything more there. You know my thoughts on that. So yeah. So have you obviously you gave that example. Have you ever had someone that I guess you feel didn't give you opportunities because you're a woman?
That's a good question. I think when I finished the project, I feel like the project that was in the UAE, I feel like there could have been the opportunity to get back onto the project because there was a period where we had to like all the resources that were originally scheduled to roll off, like 6 months later, they had to come off the project, and there was the possibility that they would have been put back on. So I think that I felt a little out of place, the fact that I was the only female on a team with six other guys, and I was the least senior person on that team as well. They were very helpful. They took the time to like explain certain things, especially since we were working with a technology that I never worked with personally. But I feel like if I wasn't as new to Accenture, I feel like I would have been able to get back onto that project a lot, or I would have been like high priority to get back on that project. But they more or less said because I was based in the UK, it was a bit too expensive to have me back on the project. So
Okay, that's understandable.
yeah, I feel like at Accenture,
Mhm.
opportunities are very, very like abundant. It doesn't matter what whether you're a male or female. And I know at the moment we're working on 50-50, like in terms of matching the ratio of men to women by 2025. So like gender was never a problem at Accenture. So.
Good. Yeah, I find I'm really loving the fact that the big organizations and the big consultancy firms are really taking a stand, I guess, and sharing their targets. I think it's important that we get to a stage where all companies are sharing their targets around diversity, whether it be gender or ethnicity.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I've got a couple of questions that we've received from the community. I also want to open it out to the obviously our viewers with us today. So if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to drop them in the comments box, and Amatullah will answer them for you. I'm talking for her now, so hopefully we'll pick out the good ones. And I've got a couple in advance to get us started. So one that we've received is what's it like to come from such a big family, and do you feel the pressure to succeed?
Oh. I wouldn't say it's pressure as much. I feel like the same way you've paved the way for me in technology, I feel like that's the same way that I want to. I mean, like if you look at our nieces, for example, when they get to the age of choosing what career they want to go into, I feel like it's definitely, I don't want, oh, I'm a girl, I probably shouldn't be in that career to be an issue. I feel like that stereotype of certain jobs are for men is something that I very much want to break down and follow in your footsteps.
Oh, thank you. I think for me, I love the fact that I'm the eldest, because it's definitely taken away any pressure that I may have felt. I had no one to compare myself to. So if I failed at everything, oh, that is just what it is. At least that's setting the bar. But you guys are just continue to make me proud. So thank you. So another question was, how has working in a smaller company such as the fitness, how has working in smaller companies such as your fitness role and ultimately your role as an interpreter compared to working in a big consultancy company?
You know, I've never actually thought about it. I think it's definitely, working in a big firm, there's so much opportunity and so much variety that you wouldn't necessarily get working in a smaller company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed working at New U Fitness Centre. I enjoyed working at the bank. But I think when there's opportunities at Accenture that I know that I would not have been able to get elsewhere, such as when I first joined, within 6 months, they were like, oh, you know, there's going to be 2 weeks training for you in Chicago. And I was like, okay, sign me up. So at the 6-month mark, I was on a plane to Chicago, and I remember someone said, oh, you know, if you are in Chicago and you leave from, like, let's say New York, you know, you can actually, the company will cover that. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, in that case, I am booking 2 weeks holiday straight after. And I then paid for my flights from Chicago to North Carolina. I visited some really close friends that I knew from Saudi. And then I moved on to New York and visited a friend that I've known for years. And I just think that I wouldn't have had that opportunity to go to do all those things if I didn't get into the big corporate life. And then, of course, there's the glamorous things of, you know, your hotels are expensed whenever you're, you know, at a client site and that sort of thing. You get free meals, and who doesn't like a really good dinner?
You know, funny enough, how long has it been since I was in Germany? I think like 3 or 4 years, and I'm still working with my Radisson points, so I still get free hotel stays. I'm like,
Yeah,
loving the flight.
amazing. I think that was the best hack that I got when I joined Accenture, was like, oh, make sure you join like some sort of loyalty scheme for the hotels, which, yeah, I think I booked my mom a hotel when she was flying to Jamaica. So yeah, definitely comes in handy.
Oh, perfect. Cool. So, another question from the community. So, you work in cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity?
Oh, oh gosh, it's so. Do you want to take this one, sis? I'm kidding.
No. I can tell you what discovery is.
So cybersecurity is essentially security of, I would say, computers. You think of everything that you're connected to, and it grows even more and more as we advance in technology. It's not just, okay, securing your computer through antiviruses. It's securing yourself online, securing your the cloud. So if you're connected to the cloud and you've got, you know, all your data on the cloud, you want to make sure that that can't be hacked, or that you're taking the necessary precautions, such as setting up multi-factor authentication, that sort of thing. There are so many different divisions of cybersecurity. So when I joined Accenture, I went straight into strategy and risk, but we have a division for penetration testing, which is like ethical hacking and that sort of thing. We have application security team. We have an Internet of Things team, which is looking at like Apple Watches, connected medical devices, and that sort of thing. So Summarizing what cybersecurity is difficult because I'm still like, oh, I don't know if I want to go into digital identity and like, that sort of thing. So it's to summarize without actually summarizing, it is a a very vast field.
Cool. I think, yeah, I think you highlighted the key parts, and there's still so much for people to learn about cybersecurity, definitely. We had a comment pop up while we were talking from Enbros Tech, who said it's a great question. And I know them as a company, they're really working to give people who don't have the experience a chance to gain experience to help them break into cybersecurity. So if they say it's a great question, it definitely was. So thank you, whoever sent that in. So another question was, what is your biggest achievement?
Okay, so I would highlight probably just two at the moment. I'm hoping that there will be more that I will highlight. But the first one is when I started university, I managed to maintain like either A's or B's in my first 2 years. And then in my third year, I had like a lot of problems like in my personal life that was going on. And I think my biggest achievement is in the third year of university, I split into two parts. So I went part-time. And the first year, which is the year that I was having a lot of a lot of problems health-wise and other, so in that year, my average dropped to C's, like across the board. And then the third year, well, the second part of the third year, I was like, okay, I need to get this done. I came here for a first. I'm graduating with a first, and so I put the days in. I put the hours in. I put in all the all-nighters, and I managed to graduate with a first. So I think that for me is one of my biggest achievements, which I could not have done without my mother. And
again, I've got to cut in and show you the graduation picture next to my desk.
Oh, cute. And the second biggest achievement I would say was when I was working on that project in the UAE. It was just around the same time that COVID started to be a thing, and well, I guess it was the emergence of the first cases of COVID was towards mid-March in the UAE. So that's when people started setting up like the thermal scanners at the entrances. You weren't allowed to go into a mall or a restaurant unless they scanned your temperature, and all the precautions were in place. So because we had this, the software that we were rolling out was supposed to happen over the course of eight months, and the client came back and was like, the actual software was to help enable people to work remotely. And because of COVID, they were like, okay, we know that we'll most likely need to close down the offices. So instead of this 8-month window that we originally gave you and that you guys were planning towards, we need it rolled out in 2 weeks. So I was security focused at that point, and it was all hands on deck at that after the client asked for that. And of course, like we were like, okay, whatever the client needs is what we would accommodate, right? So we then went on to completely restructure the plan. And I remember speaking to one of the trainers who was in the change management team, and I was like, how can I help? And he was like, oh, now that you've asked, do you want to be a trainer? And it was more, there's a phrase called you were voluntold.
Okay.
So I was voluntold that I'm going to be a trainer the following day. And so he sent me the material and he was like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to be that many people. So we were essentially training the ambassadors that were going to be helping all the other employees set up this software on their mobile devices and their laptops. So the following, so I got the deck that I had to work on, and I practiced in my hotel room. The following day, the first session, I was like, I can't do this. I can't. Like, I'm gonna freeze. I'm gonna forget how to speak English, and I'll just probably burst into tears. And I remember one of the MDs had said to me that, "Don't worry, like, just like, you've done this before." He was like, "Just think that you've done this before." And I was like, "Yeah, I've done this. I am a trainer now." So it wasn't that I was training them on something that I didn't know. This was software that we use. So
Mhm.
it was very intuitive in how you actually use it and how you can teach it. So the first session had consisted of 25 people. And after that, I was like, yeah, I got this. This is easy. The second session consisted of 40, which I wasn't expecting. We had to get in extra chairs and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And the third one, again, was 25. So that was a lot of people for the first day.
Yeah.
And I got really good feedback. I actually enjoyed it. And then I went on to get another project where I was helping. Well, it was a pro bono um, rollout that we were doing for a charity, and I went on to be the training lead for that for like 4 weeks.
Mhm.
So yeah, I that that was definitely a one of my biggest achievements was going from uh, security analyst to trainer in the span of 2 days,
Nice.
less
That is
than
fantastic. And you see, by taking, well, you were voluntold, but by
that.
being told to do something like that, it opens further doors for you because that led you on to the next project. So
Yeah,
proud of you.
and it definitely gives you the confidence to, it just I always have. I mean, I think a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome, where you're like, okay, they're gonna know that you don't know
Yeah.
something. They're gonna ask you something, and you won't know the answer, and they're gonna, think that this person is unqualified or inexperienced. Which, to be honest, that never happens. No, I think we always tend to overthink things and overcomplicate it, and that's essentially what imposter syndrome is thinking that people are going to think that you don't know, or you think that you aren't qualified enough to be here.
Hmm. Absolutely. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was talking about imposter syndrome and the fact that, like, regardless of, I know it's really associated with a lot of women have come out recently talking about they've got imposter syndrome, but then there's also people like Brad Pitt and George Clooney who've come out saying they've got imposter syndrome. And what the main message that was coming through in the podcast was, it's a human trait. Like, we all have that doubt inside of us, but we are all capable. We wouldn't be where we are now if we weren't able to be. So yeah, it's definitely important to recognize your imposter syndrome, but also work on trying to trying to get through it and trying to address it.
Yeah.
Cool. So just another last call to the community who are online now. If you've got any questions for Amatullah, please drop them in the box. We are going to be wrapping up quite soon, but I really want you to take this opportunity to learn about this amazing woman and to ask any questions that you've got about her as well. And as I mentioned earlier, if there is anything that you think of after, or if there's anything that you think of when watching this recorded, still feel free to put it in the comments and we'll get that addressed inside of the comments box as well. Cool. So I'm going to ask, I guess, coming to our closing kind of questions, what's next for you?
So depending on the projects that I'm on, I kind of gravitate to something else. Well, that just sounds like I just keep jumping from one project to the other. I don't. But I've worked on 6 different projects over 4 different industries whilst I've been at Accenture. So I've worked on a healthcare client. I've worked on a telecommunications client. I've worked on financial services and resources. So I think, and then the variety of the project is completely different as well. So one was like firewall testing. Another one was setting up a governance board for a client, which which oversees the policies and standards and procedures of cybersecurity. And I think at the moment I'm working on a database remediation project, and I've found it very interesting. And I think I'm gonna probably go into a bit more on that in terms of it's specific to digital identity and identity and access controls. So I think I'm gonna go more into that. But at the same time, I also want to go into cloud security. So I know with at the moment, I've already done an Azure cloud certificate. I want to then go on to the security technologies one. And from what I've seen with the, I've started studying. You know, when you're like, okay, I've got it on my radar. I've done a couple hours here and there. But within cloud security, you can focus on identity and access management. So I think that is the route that I'm going to go onto. I'll probably start with Azure and then move on to Google Cloud and then AWS.
Cool. Sounds like there's some really interesting things coming our way from you. So I look forward to seeing that. Okay, and so there's a question that I ask all of our guests on the Black Tech Queen show, and it's if there was advice that you'd is there any advice that you'd like to share with a Black Tech Queen who is breaking into technology or someone who's trying to further their career?
So 3 things. The first one being networking. When I joined Accenture, I remember one of the first senior managers that I met, lovely, lovely person. She said to me that Accenture runs on networking. Make sure you network. And then the first social event that we went to was kind of like, you know, she kind of gave advice in terms of like setting yourself a target, try and network with like 2-3 people that you've never spoken to before. And it was myself and a colleague that was in the assessment center with me. And we were like, okay, let's tackle this together. Let's both go and introduce ourselves to 2 or 3 new people that we've never spoken to. And after a while, people, I mean, because networking is so important, people will come up to you and introduce themselves as well. So it's not just you have to go up and introduce yourself to someone, you know, just being in that opportunity and, you know, being open to having conversations with people. Of course, this was pre-COVID. Now that we're in COVID, I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely really, really important. I've had people who have contacted me because they're due to go into an assessment center at Accenture, and they just wanted advice on, like, you know, what is the actual culture like and that sort of thing. So I think definitely building your network, and if you know someone who might be recruiting, like, advertise it, because there might be someone who's like, oh, that's interesting. I know Accenture is hosting a women's insights day on the 15th. That's on my LinkedIn page, so check it out. And it's also on
Queen.
Yeah. So the first one, I would say networking. The second one would be apply for the job even if you don't have 100% of the qualifications. And I think we tend to like look at a job description and we're like, okay, I can do that. And then there's probably 2 or 3 things that you probably don't have experience in. And you're like, you know what, I'm not 100% qualified, I'll get rejected. And that's a mindset that I feel like we need to move away from. Because when it comes to, I think men will apply for a job if they have 50 to 60% of the qualifications. And for women, we just think that we need to have 100%, which isn't the case. So I would say apply for the job even if you don't have all the qualifications or all of the experience that is required. And the third one and last one is, I would say, in terms of furthering your career, no one is going to tell your story like you do. Being able to advocate for yourself is very important, because I know when I joined Accenture, they were like, oh, you can manage your career. You can, if you want to do something, you can do something. And in the first year, I was kind of like finding my feet a little bit. So I was like, okay, I know what I want to do eventually. But I didn't actually put the gears in motion to get to that. I kind of was like, oh, I'll see what comes up next and that sort of thing. But now I'm more focused on, I know where I want to go, but who can help me get there? And that goes back to point one of building your network, because when you have a good network, I've made contact with people in cloud security. I let the UKI security lead know that I want to move into something Azure related, and he's put me in contact with the people that can help me achieve that.
No, fantastic. And so it links your last point to your first point that you just said. But if you building out your network, there's people who will advocate for you and support you when you're not in the room as well. So
100%.
definitely, they're great pieces of advice. So thank you. So I'm afraid we are coming to the end, but you can find out more about Amatullah and everything that she's doing, all the amazing things coming her way. We've got her link to her LinkedIn in our bio, so please follow her, keep up to date there. Also remember, you can follow Black Tech Queens on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook at blacktechqueens.com. And also our engagement and partner coordinator, Amatullah, will be keeping things up to date. So definitely, if there's anything you want us to share, feel free to drop either one of us a line and we will get that shared for you. And most importantly, remember to always inspire, aspire, and achieve. Thank you for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you for having me.